Hi everyone, I'm Trish Connor Cato. Welcome to the Excel 2021 Visual Basic for Applications video course. This course is for beginning users looking to automate repetitive and recurring tasks in Microsoft Excel. VBA, as it's known, is Microsoft's programming language that is built into the Office applications. Our focus during this course is on Excel specifically. The course ends with you learning how to deal with code errors, known as debugging, and how to write error handling code. By the end of this course, you will be equipped with the basics to start writing your own VBA code, modify macros you've recorded, and have an understanding of how VBA lends itself to creating efficiency in your daily tasks. Our last and final lesson, Lesson 8, is about debugging code. So we will learn about the types of coding errors and their causes, how to use the debug toolbar to investigate errors. So in that topic, you'll be learning how to set breakpoints and what they are, how to step through code, how to use break mode during run mode, and determining the value of expressions. Then we'll get into handling errors, and you'll learn how to understand error handling and VBA's error trapping options. We'll be trapping errors with the on-error statement. You'll learn about the error object and writing an error handling routine, and also working with inline error handling. I'll give you some tips on minimizing errors, and you'll learn how to protect your code. So we'll just be using the sales fiscal year file in this lesson. Coding and errors go hand in hand. Coding errors are referred to as bugs, and we've probably seen a couple of errors during this course. Typos will happen. Syntax may be overlooked, like you might forget an end with statement. Math errors may occur, and there are many more things that can cause code errors during execution. So there are only 3 types of errors in VBA, which should be some small comfort to you. And all of them can occur during program execution, and you will learn the reasons why they occur. The process of tracing and correcting code errors is known as debugging. The editor has a debug toolbar that can be used for this purpose. We'll also cover tips for minimizing errors and what to do if you cannot resolve them. You'll see in this chapter why the structure of your code is important during the process of debugging. Code is easier to review when it's organized in a logical structure. The 3 types of errors are logic, runtime, and syntax. Logic errors are the most difficult ones to locate, and Visual Basic for Applications will give you no help in finding them. These are usually caused by typos. Logic errors will not stop your code execution. Instead, you will have an unexpected outcome. For example, you may have used a minus sign instead of a plus sign in an expression. So you'll get a result, it'll just be the wrong result. A runtime error happens when a line of code cannot be executed. The procedure will come to a halt, and a message box will display that defines the error. There is a help button in the message box that can be used to view the help topic associated with that specific type of runtime error. There are many types of runtime errors. You can get a runtime error if you try to divide by 0, if you reference a non-existent workbook or other object, or if you reference an Excel cell that contains an error. And those are just a few examples. Then you have syntax errors. Now these are detected in the editor. They're detected by 2 different things. They're detected by the line editor. So once you type a line of code and you press enter at the end, if there is an error, a syntax error, the entire line will turn red. So you can have incomplete expressions, missing arguments, and those could create syntax errors. And then they can also be detected by the compiler. So we've been compiling our code consistently throughout the course. And that is checking all lines of code in each procedure and all declarations of variables within the project. If variable declaration is required, and we have option explicit going there, it checks that all variables are declared and that all objects have correct references to properties, methods, and events. It also checks constructs to ensure the correct required statements are present. So when you have a with block, you need end with. When you have if, most cases, you need end if. The compiler will display a message box that describes the error if it finds a syntax error. When we start debugging, we will be using the debug toolbar in the editor to investigate our errors. So just to get you a little bit familiar with it, the tools on the debug toolbar can be categorized as follows: tools that help you manually execute the program, tools that suspend the execution of the code, and tools that assist in determining the values of expressions. So the first set of tools on the debug toolbar, you have design mode, you have your run sub user form icon, which is also on the standard toolbar. You have break, which is pause, and you have reset. And then the tools that can suspend the execution of the program would include toggling a breakpoint. Now, we saw an example of stepping into code because normally a procedure will run the entire block of code, or you can step into it and have it execute line by line. We've seen that happen before. You also have the ability to step over code, which executes one procedure or one statement at a time. And then stepping out of code can overlook a called procedure and executes the remaining lines of the calling procedure. And then you have your windows group. So you have a locals window, immediate window, watch window, quick watch. And those are used to determine the values of expressions. I have a slide here that has all the details, including the shortcut keys for the options on the debugging toolbar. Most debugging is done when the application is suspended, which is known as break mode. An application is in break mode when a runtime error occurs, a breakpoint is manually inserted into the code, or a stop statement is entered within the code. Some of the debugging tools can be utilized in design mode and or at runtime, in addition to when the application is in break mode. And that would be to step into immediate window and watch window tools. So now I'm in Sales Fiscal Year Visual Basic Editor, and I'm in the Mod Totals module. And we're going to force a syntax error to happen in this module. So you'll see what happens when you have a syntax error. In the add totals procedure, in the if line, we're going to change our not equal symbol to an exclamation point. Now, we of course know that that is not a legal operator in here. So then if we click away from that line, the line will turn red. It says compile error, which is a syntax error. And this one, it's saying expected then or go to. Sometimes it's not right on the point. This is the line editor that's picking that error up. So we're going to say, okay. And now let's go up and compile. So this error is something different. It says compile error, syntax error, but it doesn't give the wrong detail. We know why this error is occurring because exclamation point is not a valid operator to use. So we're going to click OK. And go ahead and change your exclamation point back to the not equal symbols. And then compile again. And now let's switch to the code window for our form. And we're going to create another error in that window. So go down to the opt month change event. And in that event, delete the end if statement. And now compile. So this one is right on point. Block if without end if. Click OK. And you can do Control Z, undo, to get your if end if block statement back. And now if you compile, you won't get the error, obviously. Now we're going to use the debug toolbar to set a manual breakpoint in our code. So let's switch to mod reports and navigate to the bottom of the module where you see the finish report sub procedure. And let's go to the view menu and hover over toolbars and click on debug. So it comes up as a floating toolbar. And you can see the groups of icons like you saw on the slide. In that finish report sub procedure, you're going to click in front of the line that says cells.select. Click in front of that line. And on the debug toolbar, you're going to go ahead and toggle a breakpoint. And that's the hand. So it turns that line like a maroon color and it puts a maroon oval in the margin gray box to the left of it. And so we set a manual breakpoint. When we run our show form procedure and we make selections, it's going to run everything and it's going to come to a halt when it gets to this line. So what I'm going to do, similar to what we did when we stepped into code earlier, I'm going to decrease the width of the Project Explorer and Properties windows, and I'm going to arrange my windows so I have Excel on one side and the editor on the other. And now in Excel, we are going to go ahead and use our show form icon. We'll do month again so it doesn't take as long, and we'll do classification, and we'll do it for July. And go ahead and display. So we just have to wait it out while it clicks in words. It's doing all those other procedures first. And now you'll notice that the line in the code that we set the breakpoint on is highlighted yellow, which lets you know that it completed everything up to the line above that line. It went through all the procedures, created everything. So we know that if we step into the code, it will then go line by line. So on your debug toolbar, to the right of the hand are your step buttons. There's step into, step over, and step out. And we're going to choose step into. So now you'll see that it selected the cells. Remember, stepping into, it's going to be doing the line above whatever is the yellow line now. You can press F8 to step into the next line. So it's activating that reports worksheet. And we're going to F8. So now you're seeing the reports workbook. And it's telling it to paste. So we're going to F8 again. And it did the paste and it selected A1. And then we're going to F8 again. And it's activating the sales fiscal year 1. F8, and now you see sales fiscal year again. And now it's on the application cut copy mode equals false statement. So if you F8 here, You don't see any visible effect. And now it's on the selected sheets delete. So it's on the report sheet. When we F8, this is when we get that prompt that it's going to permanently delete the sheet, and we're going to confirm the deletion. And now it's telling it to activate the reports workbook. Now at this point, we're not going to use step into again. You want to find the step out button, which would be Control Shift F8. So remember, step out can overlook the called procedure. The two lines under the yellow line are calling procedures. So let's see what happens when we click step out. So it went past those calling procedures and it took us right to unload me, right? So it bypassed those calling procedures. And so you can see the difference. Step into is line by line. Step over, you'll see in just a moment. And then you have step out. Now, what we want to do is we want to reset our project. So if you ever get a runtime error after you resolve the error, you're going to want to reset. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the reset button. It looks like a stop button on the debug toolbar in the editor. And in Excel, we're going to close the report sheet without saving the reports file, without saving the changes. And we just have our sales fiscal year in the Visual Basic editor open here. So now let's maximize our editor window and drag your divider bar so you can see Project Explorer and Properties windows. And if necessary, let's go back to Mod Reports because we never removed our manual breakpoint, right? So we reset the project, but that does not remove any breakpoints you set manually. So we can remove it one of two ways. We can click in the line where our breakpoint is set in the finish report procedure and click the hand, or you could have double clicked on the oval in the margin. So now that that is done, let's go back to the code window for our form. And we're going to use this display button click procedure to highlight how you can step over code. So when you step over code, it's executing one procedure at a time or one statement at a time. So right now, when we execute this, it does, like every other one, it's just executing everything. It's a bunch of, we have me hide and unload me, but everything else is called procedures. Now we're going to say we want to execute them one at a time, really, one statement at a time. So let's click in front of me hide and set a breakpoint, manual breakpoint, the hand again. And now we can arrange our windows side by side again. And we're going to run our show form procedure. And let's do month classification. And this time we'll select July and display. So now the form isn't even hidden yet because it's in that command display, right? And it hasn't executed that me hide line yet. So on the debug toolbar, we're going to find the step over icon, and that shortcut key would be Shift F8, and we're going to click it. So it goes to the next called line, get dates, step over that. So this one is really functioning like a step into, but these are different procedures. These are called procedures. And so you can continue stepping over them. And now it would complete the process. Go ahead and confirm your deletion. Close the reports workbook without saving the changes. And now we need to switch back to the code module for the form. And actually, it's just one click in the margin. Remove your manual breakpoint. And go ahead and save your file. So now we're going to set up a situation that's going to cause a runtime error. So let's go to the directory where you have your working directory where that reports workbook is saved and rename it reports 2. And then come back over to sales fiscal year. And I'm going to just maximize my sales fiscal year. So now in my directory, I don't have a reports Excel file. I have reports with the number 2. So let's go ahead and display our form. Let's do all this time and classification and go ahead and display. And again, it's going through all the sheets, so it's going to take a moment or 2 or 3. And ultimately, the execution of the program stops. Now, because my Visual Basic screen was sized that way still, otherwise it normally takes you over to the editor. You're still seeing the Excel sheet, so I'm going to just maximize, well, once I get rid of this. But it lets you know that it's runtime error 1004, and it's letting you know it couldn't find the file called reports. Is it possible it was moved, renamed, or deleted? Well, yep. So what you could do is you could click debug on here, and it will highlight the line of code where it's trying to open that file. Let's go ahead and click reset on the debug toolbar and maximize your editor window if necessary. So we know that we could resolve that error by renaming reports 2 back to reports, and we will be doing that. But first, let's talk about error handling. So it is a best practice to write error trapping code to try to avoid runtime errors. You might not be able to avoid all of them, but it will be helpful to avoid as many as possible. There are options for error trapping, and they're in the options dialog box where earlier we made sure a require variable declaration was set and we changed our font size. The options for error trapping are to break on all errors. So this means that even if you've written error handling code, it's going to break anyway. It's going to stop the execution of the program, bring you back over to the editor with the error message. So that option disables any error handling code you may have written. Break in class module is the second option. So this will break and an error message will display when an unhandled error occurs within a class module. This option is only useful for debugging. And then the last option is the one I most commonly have selected, and that is break on unhandled errors. When I've written error handling code or error trapping code, it won't break on those procedures, but it will break for any unhandled procedures. So if I haven't written any trapping code for those procedures, those are the ones that it will break on. When we go back to the editor, we're going to write some error trapping code. So an on error statement is used in VBA to enable what's known as an error trap. If an error is generated after this statement is executed, the error handler becomes active and passes control to the code that the on error statement specifies. So there are only 2 types of on error statements. We're going to use both: on error GoTo and on error resume next. So for the on error GoTo, you point it to what's known as a line label. Once the statement traps an error, the error can be handled in one of three ways. You can write an error handler. So this is a routine that is pointed to in the on error GoTo statement line label. The line label statements address one or more types of errors for the procedure, and you'll see that play out. You could ignore the error by using the on error resume next statement. It will trap the error and handle it by moving to the next line of code. And then inline error handling uses the on error resume next statement to trap the error. And then code is entered in the procedure to check for errors after any statements that are expected to generate errors. The error object in VBA can be used to examine information about an error that has just occurred. The error object has a global scope and has properties and methods that are useful for finding out information about the current error, clearing error information, and generating errors. The properties contain information about the error that just occurred in the current procedure. The number property is the identification number of the most recent error. Numbers represent different types of errors. We saw we had a certain runtime error with a number. And the property's data type is long. Description property describes the error and corresponds to the error number. It and the source are string data types. And the source is a name that identifies the component, module, and/or procedure that generated the error. There are two methods for the error object, clear and raise. Clear will reset all the error object's properties to 0 or zero-length strings. This method is used automatically when any on error statement is encountered. And then the raise method generates a runtime error that can specify the number of an error defined by VBA, Excel, or another application such as Word. Now, this course is all about Excel VBA, but again, you have Word VBA, Access VBA, so on and so forth. So now I'm in Sales Fiscal Year, and I deleted the Reports Sheet tab, and I'm going to switch over to the Editor window. In the editor window, let's just check and make sure our error trapping options are set correctly. So we're going to go up to Tools, Options, and we're going to click on the General tab at the top. You'll see on the right side you have your error trapping frame, and we want it to be set on Break on Unhandled Errors, which in my case it is. We're going to click OK. And now, if you need to expand your divider bar, we want to navigate to Mod Reports. And we're going to write some error trapping code. We're not going to change the name of the workbook quite yet back to Reports, because we want to see how the code we're getting ready to write will handle the error. So we're going to click at the end of the variable declaration line, and we're going to press Enter a couple of times. And we're going to type on error GoTo, which is one word, and we're going to give it a line label of error handler. And you can make that pretty much anything you need it to say, the line label. So on error, go to error handler. Click at the end of the set field statement, press Enter, and type exit sub. And we'll get all of this explained after we get it typed in. Press Enter twice and type error handler and a colon and Enter. And we're going to do a select case construct. So select case, and we're going to reference the error object and the dot notation, and you get a list of its properties and its two methods. We want the number property, and we're going to press enter, tab, case 1004, enter, tab, and we want it to display a message box. So let's set up our framework for a message box. And it's going to say the reports workbook is not available. And we are going to press enter and shift tab. And we're going to do a case else statement. Enter, tab, and this is going to display another message box. So the first message box is only going to display the prompt argument. This one, set up your message box framework. And in the quotes, you're going to put error number, and that's plain English. We're going to do a concatenated statement here, a colon, space, close your double quotes, space, your concatenation character of ampersand. Then we're going to reference the error object again, dot, and its number property. Space, another ampersand. We're going to tell it to go down to the next line in the message box by using VB capital L F. So Visual Basic Line Feed. Another space and an ampersand, space, and the underscore for the line continuation character. We'll finish this on the next line. Press enter and tab. In double quotes, you're going to type in plain English, error description, colon, space, double quote, space, ampersand, and we're going to reference the error object again, dot, and its description property. And we need a closing parenthesis after that. Enter, shift tab, and actually you're going to shift tab twice to get to the case margin. Well, actually 3 times because we want to be at the select case margin. And we're going to type our end select statement. Make sure you have a blank line between end select and end sub. Let's go ahead and compile and save, and then we'll review our error trapping code and test it. We started with the on-error GoTo statement where we used error handler as a line label. So if an error is encountered, it's going to look for the error handler line. And before it does so, it's going to exit the sub procedure. So we're going to go down to the error handler line, and it's going to execute the code that we put in there. So if the error is a runtime error 1004, it's going to display a message box that says the reports workbook is not available. If it's a different runtime error number, it's going to display a message box with a concatenated statement that says error number, colon, followed by the actual error number. And then on the next line, it will say error description, colon, followed by the error description. Let's go ahead and switch over to Excel. Launch your form. And make sure you don't have a report sheet tab in here. And we'll do all and classification and display. And ultimately, we'll get the message box that says the report's workbook is not available, because the error we got is runtime error 1004. We're going to click OK in that, and notice it doesn't take us back over to the editor or anything else. So now we're going to set up for another runtime error. This time we're not going to delete the report sheet, but if you look down at your status bar, you'll notice it says select destination and press enter to choose paste. We're going to press escape just to get the data off of our clipboard, or we'll even run into more serious errors. Now we're going to go back to our working directory and rename reports 2 back to reports. And I'm going to just go back to my sales fiscal year Excel file. So at this point, we know that if the file name is wrong or the file is missing, we'll get the message box that lets us know the workbook is not available. But now we're not going to delete the report sheet, and we're going to launch our form again. And this time, let's do month, and we'll select July, and we'll do model in the sales frame and display. So we get a runtime error 1004. That name is already taken. Try a different one. We're going to click on debug. Because we haven't written the error handling code to trap the error, it's going to break the execution of the program. And when we debug, we see the line that's causing the error. So it just added a new sheet, and it tried to name it reports, but there's already a report sheet in the workbook. So we're going to do reset on the debug toolbar. Go back to mod reports. And in the consolidated data procedure, after the variable declaration, so I'm going to click after dim sheet as worksheet, press enter a couple of times. And we're going to type on error, resume next. Click at the end of the active sheet.name equal reports line that was highlighted and press enter. And we're going to tab. And we're going to type if error dot, and we're going to access its number property, equal 1004, then enter, tab, active sheet dot delete, enter, sheets, and then in parentheses and double quotes, reports dot cells dot select, enter, selection dot clear, enter, air dot clear. So we're accessing the clear method of the air object. We're going to enter again, shift tab, and end if. Go ahead and compile and go ahead and save your file. So on error resume next is saying if there is an error, go to the line after the error and resume execution of the code. So we got an error on this active sheet line. So we wrote some error trapping code, and it's going to execute that code. It was also an error number 1004. Then it's going to delete the active sheet, because what it did, and you'll see this when we switch back over to Excel, is it added another sheet, sheet 1, sheet 2, or whatever, and it broke the execution of the program when it tried to name that new sheet reports, because there's an existing report sheet. So it's going to delete whatever sheet it created, and then it's going to go to Sheets Reports and select all the cells, clear the selection, and clear the error. And then it's going to resume and do what it would normally do. Let's go ahead and test this. Switch over to Excel, and you'll notice you'll have a new sheet, whatever number it is, in front of your report sheet. We're going to delete that sheet, leave the report sheet, and we're going to launch our form again. And we did month, and I think we did model. We could select July and display. So now it created that new sheet, and it's saying it's going to delete it, which is the error trapping code. It cleared the report sheet, it's gathering everything, and it's going to complete the process. And we're going to do delete ultimately. So go ahead and delete the report sheet. And now you're in the reports file, and you're going to close that and don't save the changes. The moral of the story is, for runtime errors, if you want to avoid the halting of program execution, you can write error trapping code and procedures that you create that you think might lend themselves to errors. So think about different situations. If the report sheet wasn't deleted, if the file got moved or the name was changed or something like that. And you can trap those errors using error handling code. Go ahead and save your file. So I'm back in Visual Basic Editor, and I'm in that consolidate data procedure. But I want to show you how you can see the value of variables and properties during code execution. So in the consolidate data procedure, we're going to look for the select case statement that says select case frm generate reports dot period. And we're going to set a breakpoint on that line. So you can use your debug toolbar to click the hand. Also on the debug toolbar over toward its right, you'll see the window group, and we're going to click on locals window. And it opens on the bottom of the screen, and it's currently empty. That window will populate when the code executes. So we're going to execute the code up to the breakpoint by switching over to Excel. Go ahead and show your form. Let's do the month of August. I think that's the shortest amount of data in there. And we'll do classification and go ahead and display. So it breaks at that point, and you'll notice that the locals window is now populated. And it has 3 columns: expression, value, and type. So if you look under expression, mod reports is collapsed. If you click it, and it will show you the variables that are in that module, right? Column name, data name, page name, row name. And then it's showing you their values right now up to this point in the code execution. And then over there, it tells you the type, the data type, or whether it's a module. And then it has the variable this month, which is currently 8. We selected August. And been there and compare from some of those inserted procedures that we used. So as the code executes, values of variables change over time. And at this point in the execution of the code, these are the values of our variables. And I should say under mod reports, those are the public variables declared up at the top of the screen in the declarations section. I'm going to drag the divider between my locals window and my code window down just a little bit. And notice in this select case statement, There was already an on error resume next statement, one that we didn't do. It was built in. This is one we brought in from a text file. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our step into shortcut key of F8 until that on error resume next line is highlighted. And now you'll notice that the value of sheet has changed to reports, and sheet is collapsed. You can expand it, and it's showing a bunch of other stuff in there now. So the name of the sheet is report, so on and so forth. And if you take a look at the line underneath the yellow highlighted line, at the end of that line and at the beginning of that line, there's a variable named compare. If you hover over it, you'll see what the value of that variable is. So it shows in the locals window, but when you halt program execution, you can actually see the value of variables by pointing to them on the screen. Now, in that same compare equals line, you're going to select the expression starting with CDate through the first parentheses after compare. So you should have selected CDate, open paren, compare, close paren. On your debug toolbar, your watch window is available now, as is quick watch. Go ahead and click on quick watch first, and that evaluates the value of an expression. And we're going to cancel that. So your locals window will show you all of the variable and their values at the point of program execution. The quick watch window will just evaluate one expression that's selected. And now I'm going to show you how to use the watch window. So I'm going to show you how you would be able to use a watch window. First of all, at the bottom of your screen, on the far right side of the locals title bar, you're going to do the X to close the locals window. And we're going to reset on the debug toolbar. And then we're going to go back into mod reports, and we're going to get rid of our breakpoint. So the watch window is used during program execution. We don't have a really good example of it. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this, but I'm going to show you how to set it up. So on the debug toolbar, go ahead and click on watch window. And the difference between watch and quick watch, once you select an expression and go in there, it evaluates the value of that expression. And the watch window, you have to manually add expressions. And while the program is executing, you can see the values of those expressions. Now, you could set a breakpoint and then see the values of the expressions at the watch window when it hits that breakpoint. So if we go to, let's do this. I'll show you an example. It's not a good example. In your consolidate data code, let's select that CDate compare expression again. And then in your watch window, you're going to right click and choose add watch. So it's already populated. It tells you the procedure, the module, the project, watch type, it's a watch expression. And we're going to click OK. So right now, the value of that expression is out of context. But if you were to select the right things, the right combination of things where that's going to kick in, then it would change, just like you saw it change in the locals window. So I mostly use quick watch, and I use a lot of the locals window. And oftentimes, like we did earlier, I'll test the value of variables in the immediate window. You can go ahead and close your watch window. So I promised you some tips for minimizing errors in code. we've been fairly consistent adding comments to our code. It's likely that you'll not be the only person using the workbook or having access to the code. So comments describing the intent of the code are helpful even if you're not debugging. You can ensure that your variable names are descriptive and assign the correct data type. Ensure your procedure names are descriptive. Make your procedures as short as possible. Break them up by related tasks. When you're using division in an expression, be on the lookout for the divide by zero situation that causes a runtime error. And require variable declaration. Implicit declarations can lead to logic errors. If you're requiring variables to be declared, you can avoid these types of errors. And again, an implicit declaration is you don't write a declaration statement, you just use the variable. But if later on when you go to refer to it, you mistype it, it thinks you're declaring another variable. And you can see how the system can get confused by that. Here are some things that you could do if you can't resolve an error. Be patient. I have been frustrated so many times trying to hunt down an error. You may spend more time trying to decipher errors than you do writing code. If you're stuck trying to find an error, take a break from the code for a while and return to it later. My favorite is ask someone else to look at your code. I have a friend, and we often do this for each other. Sometimes a fresh set of eyes will spot what you may have spent hours looking for. Another benefit is that as you explain the problem to someone else, the solution might become clear for you. And last but certainly not least, you can search the internet. There are many information sources available, including Microsoft documentation. So we have two more things to do. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to just close the debug toolbar. And then I'm going to have you go up to the View menu and select Object Browser. So this is good for you to know about. If you're interested in all of the properties and methods for all of the objects, you can get information on them in the Object Browser window. So when you go in here, you'll notice up at the top, it says All Libraries. Do the drop down there. You have your Excel library, I have Forms library, Office, VBA Project library, and VBA. Let's go to VBA Project, right? So this is specific to the file that we're working in here. And we have all on the left side under classes, we have all of the sheet tabs. We have our form. And if we scroll down, we'll see this workbook and modules that we have. So if you select FRM Generate Reports, these are all the members. So some of these are properties, some of these are classes. I actually have the slide in the slide deck that gives you a description of the icons here. But these are all the potential ones. We're not saying that we used all of these. But you're seeing the controls that we put on here. And here we have our controls and what we named them. And these are some of the procedures that we use, the event procedures. So you're getting to see all of these things. Now, if I click on, for example, Command Display Click, down at the bottom, it tells me it's a private sub-procedure and it's a member of the VBA project Form Generate Reports. And that's a link. So I can click that link down there. And now I'm on Form Generate Reports, which is a member of VBA project. When I click that link, I'm up at the project level again. So you can see all of the icons that you'll run into in the object browser on this slide for your future reference. So I'm going to just be in Mod Reports and show you how to protect your code now. So we're going to go to the Tools menu, And on there, you'll see VBA project properties, and that's where we need to go. Up top, there's a protection tab, and you're going to check the box for lock project for viewing, and then you have to give it a password and confirm it. For training purposes, I'm going to just use the word train. It's not a recommendation at all, and I'm going to confirm it, and I'm going to click OK. Now, the change won't take place until you save and close your file. So I'm going to do just that. So I saved and closed Excel, and now I'm going to reopen the sales fiscal year file, and I'm going to do Alt F11 to get back to my code window. So now in the Project Explorer, if I expand my sales fiscal year project or attempt to, it's going to prompt me for the password. Those who do not know it will not be able to access the code. If you forget it, you won't be able to access the code. So now I can freely move around in here like we were able to do before because we have the password. Let me show you how to get rid of the password protection. And again, it doesn't work. If you make changes like this, you have to save and close the file and reopen it. So if we go back to Tools, VBA Project Properties, Protection tab, and we uncheck Lock Project for viewing, I also always delete the passwords that are out there. And then OK. And then if we close and save it, when you open it again, it won't be password protected. So you can go ahead and save and close your file. In Lesson 8, you learned about the types of coding errors, logic, runtime, and syntax, and their causes. We also learned how to use the debug toolbar to investigate errors. You learned how to set manual breakpoints and step through code, and using break mode during run mode. We also, a little bit later in the lesson, learned how to determine the value of expressions by using the quick watch window, and a little bit about how to set up the watch window to monitor the values of various expressions. And you also learned how to use the locals window in order to be able to monitor the value of variables during certain points of program execution. We moved into how to handle errors. You learned a little bit about error handling in VBA and learning about the error trapping options. We trapped errors with the on-error statements. You learned about the error object and how to access its properties and methods, and we wrote 2 error handling routines. You got some tips on how to minimize errors. You learned about how to use the object browser window, and that gives you a good grounding in different properties and methods. I mean, you could just look at the VBA library and get a bunch of great information. And then we ultimately ended up with learning how to password protect your code. I'd like to thank everyone for watching this Excel 2021 Visual Basic for Applications video course.